But this is how it starts in sports. This is how it starts in the NFL. This is how it starts in the NBA. When you start seeing the wheels in motion, there's signs. There's signs before eventually a player gets traded. A player eventually marks their next destination. The Indiana Fever, you're on notice. You're on notice. You better recognize what you've got going on, the asset in front of you, and you do whatever you have to do to correct what is happening.
So, lads, this is not a great look for the Indiana Fever organization. If you've got Caitlyn Clark, the star of the Indiana Fever, she's going and seeing whatever about not seeing the Indiana Fever's doctors. Like, it is what it is with that. It is what it is. Like, I think a lot of players and teams get second opinions. But if you haven't seen here, Stephanie White says there's no update on Caitlyn Clark or potential timeline. She met with another doctor, but White says she hasn't spoken with the trainer.
The internet noticed something specific that Holly Rowe had to say on the broadcast. Holly Rowe said that before the last return after a quad injury, she had no practice time, which, if that's actually true, like if she wasn't practicing, if she wasn't going full speed, then why was she returning to the court? And that's actually something that I pointed out. I believe it was Scott Agnes reported that Caitlyn had gone full speed in practice, but there was only one practice that she had gone full speed, and then she returned to...
She has met with a different doctor. And she won't even give an update to the team. Not, oh yeah, you know, she's met with a different doctor and we're waiting on an update. She's waiting, or not even, well, that's basically it. They're waiting on, oh, she's gone to a different doctor. And they've heard nothing.
Caitlyn Clark. Following a July 15th injury to her right groin, Indiana Fever guard Caitlyn Clark underwent further medical evaluations earlier this week. The team can confirm that no additional injuries or damage were discovered through the evaluations. Clark will continue working with the Fever medical team on her recovery and rehabilitation, with the priority on her long-term health and well-being. There is no timetable available for Clark's return, and no additional details will be provided at this time. Any further updates will be shared as they become available.
She's always like, if you're gonna do something, don't be catty. Don't go the hair. Like, you better. If you're gonna do it, do it.
She's saying it's like cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I grabbed her by the neck, but I was calm, cool, and collected.
No.
Like, I knew, but I was like, if you're gonna do something to her, then do it.
And you got tossed?
And it was 2-on-1. Yeah, I got tossed.
Did she?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we're good. Who else in the, I say WNBA, I know you say W, talks about who like shits on refs besides you?
I think I'm really the only one who publicly is a massive shitter on refs.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's awesome.
But my thing is, like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. I am someone who says what everyone else is thinking or talking about. Not just with the refs,
Did you post that
but with Detroit,
after you guys lost?
with Cleveland. I want people to hear what I just said. I am the only one, but if you ask our league, they feel the same exact way.
There are moments in sports that transcend the game itself, moments that spark conversation, ignite change, and challenge the status quo. For one breakout WNBA star, Caitlyn Clark, that moment came in a way no one could have predicted. It wasn't just Caitlyn who made headlines. It was her teammate, Sophie Cunningham, who took matters into her own hands, and in doing so, changed the narrative forever. It all started with a shocking outburst during a game. Sophie Cunningham went viral after defending Caitlyn in a way no one else had dared. But this wasn't just another heated argument or a typical basketball scuffle. It was a stand, one that would make everyone take a long, hard look at how the WNBA treats its stars. But what was really happening behind the scenes? Was this just one player's frustration boiling over? Or was there something far bigger at play? Sophie's words set the internet on fire and revealed a much deeper issue within the league. Sophie Cunningham's defense of Caitlyn Clark wasn't just a reaction, it was a direct challenge to the entire league. You're literally dumb as beep if you don't think Caitlyn's the face of the league. These weren't just bold words, they were a defiant statement that left no room for debate. For months, Caitlyn had been targeted on the court, cheap shots, hard fouls, and referees turning a blind eye. But Sophie wasn't blind to what was happening. She saw how Caitlyn was being treated differently, not just because of her talent, but because of her growing influence. While most rookies face the usual challenges, Caitlyn was facing something much deeper, an attempt to silence her spotlight. And Sophie had had enough. Sophie's frustration wasn't just about defending her. Teammate, it was about standing up for what was right. She wasn't just calling out Caitlyn's critics, she was challenging the league to recognize Caitlyn's undeniable role in growing the sport. Sophie's words weren't just aimed at the doubters, they were aimed at everyone who had benefited from Caitlyn's rise but hadn't stood up to protect her. By boldly proclaiming Caitlyn as the face of the league, Sophie forced the WNBA to confront the uncomfortable truth. Caitlyn was the future of the sport, and those who ignored that fact were doing more harm than good. Sophie's outburst wasn't just about defending Caitlyn, it was about defending the league's future. Caitlyn Clark wasn't just getting the usual rookie treatment, she was being singled out. And Sophie Cunningham saw it clearly. What was happening to Caitlyn on the court wasn't just part of the game. It was a deliberate strategy. Their players were openly talking about showing her what the WNBA is really like. They weren't interested in testing her skills, they wanted to humble her, take her down a notch, simply because of her fame and influence. The physicality Caitlyn faced wasn't normal. Sophie noticed the constant cheap shots, the hard fouls that often went uncalled, and how Caitlyn seemed to be targeted more than any other player. Every rookie gets tested, Sophie said, but what's happening to Caitlyn is just too much. The league's silence on the matter only made it worse. Caitlyn wasn't just a player in the game, she was the game changer. And the way she was being treated, the disregard for her protection, wasn't just unfair, was personal. The fact that Caitlyn was transforming arenas and bringing in new fans made some of her peers uncomfortable. But instead of supporting her, they plotted to bring her down. For Sophie, this wasn't just a defense of her teammate, it was a call to recognize that Caitlyn's stardom wasn't something to be intimidated by. It was something to be celebrated. What was happening on the court wasn't just part of the game. It was a direct assault on Caitlyn's success. And Sophie was done watching from the sidelines. When Sophie Cunningham stepped in to protect Caitlyn Clark during the game against the Connecticut Sun, it wasn't just about one foul or a physical confrontation. It was a statement. It was a message to the whole WNBA. If you go after Caitlyn, you have to go through all of us. That moment was more than just a one-time act of defiance. It was the catalyst that brought the Indiana Fever together. Before that, the team had been navigating the usual challenges of building chemistry and finding their identity. But after Sophie stood up for Caitlyn, the Fever were no longer just a collection of individual players, they were a unified force, bound by loyalty to their teammate and a shared sense of purpose. Caitlyn, visibly shaken from the constant attacks, turned to Sophie in the locker room and simply said, "Finally." It wasn't just gratitude, it was relief. Relief that someone had finally stepped up, someone had finally said what needed to be said. Sophie's words weren't just a defense, they were a shield for Caitlyn, the symbol that she wasn't in this alone. From that moment on, Sophie made it clear. If anyone was going to mess with Caitlyn, they would first have to answer to her. Sophie's defense of Caitlyn wasn't just a physical act, it was a mental shift for the entire team. It forged a bond that made them stronger as a unit, turning the Indiana Fever into a squad that would fight for each other, no matter the cost. And just like that, Sophie Cunningham wasn't just a teammate. She was the protector of the team's most valuable asset. The problem wasn't just on the quartet, it was ingrained in the WNBA itself. The league had no issue profiting off Caitlyn Clark's meteoric rise. Merchandise sales soared, TV ratings spiked, and Caitlyn's name became synonymous with the league's growth. Yet, when it came time to protect her, to stand up for the very player who was driving all this attention, silence, Sophie Cunningham didn't hold back. She called out the hypocrisy of the WNBA, pointing out how they were more than happy to cash in on Caitlyn's popularity while leaving her exposed to cheap shots and unfair treatment. The same players cashing in on her fame are the ones refusing to stand beside her, Sophie said, and she couldn't have been more right. The league's failure to act spoke volumes. They were happy to take the spotlight Caitlyn was bringing, but didn't seem willing to protect her when it counted. This wasn't just a missed opportunity, it was a dangerous double standard. Sophie's words weren't just a critique of the physical fouls on Caitlyn, they were a critique of the league itself for letting this go unchecked. Sophie made it clear that the WNBA needed to step up and put its money where its mouth was. The league truly wanted to grow and thrive. It couldn't afford to let its stars, especially someone like Caitlyn, be treated as expendable. Silence in the face of injustice was no longer an option. Sophie Cunningham's bold stand didn't just earn her respect, taunts transformed her into an internet sensation. The moment she defended Caitlyn Clark went viral, and the world took notice. Overnight, Sophie's social media following skyrocketed. She gained over 1 million new followers on TikTok and Instagram in less than 48 hours. Sophie had gone from being a respected WNBA starter to a symbol of resistance and loyalty. But Sophie wasn't just riding a wave of viral fame, she was changing the narrative. Her outburst had shifted the focus from Caitlyn's mistreatment to the systemic issues within the league. It wasn't just about the foul on the court anymore. It's about the lack of protection for the league's biggest star. Sophie had peeled back the curtain, exposing the hypocrisy in the system and calling for change. The media and fans couldn't ignore what Sophie had done. Commentators who had previously brushed off Caitlyn's struggles were now forced to address them. Slowly, other players who had been silent began showing their support, liking posts, retweeting clips, and making subtle gestures of solidarity. Sophie's actions had made it impossible for anyone to stay neutral. Her viral fame wasn't just a byproduct of the incident, it was a direct result of Sophie refusing to stay quiet. She fought not for clicks or clout, but for respect. And for Caitlyn, Sophie didn't just defend a teammate, she ignited a movement that was changing the WNBA for the better. While Caitlyn Clark was out there breaking records, filling arenas, and generating unprecedented attention for the WNBA, some parts of the league were making her the target of a double standard. It's the same players, teams, and executives cashing in on Caitlyn's fame through ticket sales, merchandise, and media coverage were the very ones refusing to stand up for her when she needed protection the most. It wasn't just about the physical fouls on the court anymore. The media played its part in building Caitlyn's image, but it was quick to tear her down the moment she showed confidence or emotion. Fans and analysts who had been quick to elevate her to superstar status would, without hesitation, criticize her whenever she showed a sign of weakness or vulnerability. Sophie didn't hold back when it came to calling this out. She directly addressed the hypocrisy within the WNBA and its treatment of Caitlyn. They want to profit off of her, but don't want to stand by her when things get tough. Sophie exposed the way the league was using Caitlyn's fame to sell jerseys and boost ratings. But when it came time to stand behind her, they left her hanging. Even other players like Kelsey Plum would benefited from the attention Caitlyn brought to the league threw shade at her in the media. Instead of celebrating Caitlyn's success, they criticized her, often with sarcasm or passive-aggressive comment. Sophie's frustration was clear. Why can't people just be nice? This wasn't just about Caitlyn's popularity, it was about the league's willingness to exploit her success while leaving her vulnerable to criticism and attack. Sophie's words struck a chord because she wasn't just defending her teammate. She was calling out the whole system for turning its back on someone who had done more to grow the game than anyone else. Sophie Cunningham's stand wasn't just a personal defense of Caitlyn Clark. It was a powerful message to the entire WNBA. When Sophie stepped in to protect Caitlyn, she wasn't just fighting for one player. She was fighting for the future of the sport itself. Sophie's actions made it clear that if the league wanted to survive and thrive, It needed to support its stars, not just use them to make money. Caitlyn's influence was undeniable, but for too long, the league had sat back and allowed her to be a target. Sophie's bold statement changed that. She wasn't just defending Caitlyn's right to succeed, she was demanding respect for the future of the league and the players who were building it. Sophie made it clear, if you're with Caitlyn, you're with the future of the WNBA. If you're against her, you're standing in the way of progress. The WNBA couldn't afford to ignore Caitlyn anymore, and they certainly couldn't afford to let her be torn down by a league that profited off her success. Sophie had drawn a line in the sand, and with that line, she ignited a movement that couldn't be erased. The choice was now clear for the league. Stand with Caitlyn or face the consequences of losing everything she had built. The fans were watching, and they were ready to fight for the game they loved. Sophie Cunningham didn't just defend a teammate. She made it known that if you come for Caitlyn, you'll have to answer to all of them. The message was loud and clear. Enough is enough.